All right, guys, today's guest is someone who isn't just talking about change, she's stepping up to create it. Lauren Hanna is a community-driven leader and council candidate who believes that strong towns are built through strong people, honest leadership, and real connection. She's passionate about listening to the residents, bringing practical solutions to the table, and making sure the voices of the community are actually shaping the future. In this episode, we will talk about why she decided to run, what she's seen on the ground, the challenges facing our community, and what real leadership looks like when you're willing to step forward and serve. This conversation is about courage, responsibility, and what it means to lead when it matters. Ladies and gentlemen, Lauren Hanna.
Stronger, smarter, faster, healthier, better.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Of course, thank you for being on. I appreciate that.
Sure.
I saw your post and I talked to Stacey and I was like, we need to get this person on. So I really appreciate you coming on, and let's have a great conversation about what you want to do and how you fell into doing all this. Usually we ask what our guest favorite beverages, and you used to do like mint tea.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course. Okay, so very first thing, honestly, is like for people who don't know you yet, like who is Lauren Hanna outside of politics? Who are you?
So I am a mom of two young daughters, and I live just down the street, so very close by. I grew up in Aurora, and my family is still here. Was very involved in the town growing up. I've always been someone who's very community-minded, very into volunteer work. So I'm currently the chair of the Aurora Public Library Board. I'm part of the local repair group, and just very involved in the community. I have great friends and family nearby, so spend a lot of time with them and try to exercise.
You're pretty strong.
A few times a week. Pretty strong. Have you seen me lifting my kids? That's probably why you know.
That takes a lot of strength.
Yeah.
That's not bad. And then, so I guess what community or life experiences shaped you to see the leadership and want to be the leader that you are today? Like what did, were your family very heavily involved with the community growing up, or did you decide you wanted to do that? How did that come about?
So it's a great question. And I think you're on the right thread there. So my father was always involved in fundraising, and he was the president of a few hospital foundations. And so I think from a young age, these seeds were planted around volunteerism, concern for others, and kind of developing that compassion, that as a core value of mine. So I would go help at different events and, was like selling red noses at the Santa Claus parade. And that I think was just like planting seeds for that community involvement. And then, I finished my degree. I went and worked at the provincial legislature in Toronto. And I did an internship program called the Ontario Legislative Internship Program. Okay. And you work for a year for a member of the government and a member of the opposition. So I spent that time also working very closely with the elected politicians that are making really important decisions, and got to sort of see that firsthand, and then went from there to the Auditor General's office, and I spent 4 years working in audits of the provincial public sector. And I think that these were just sort of formative experiences around kind of merging those values of like community involvement and that sort of volunteerism with seeing leaders in action and seeing how you can really make a difference on the ground in your community. And then fast forward to the past sort of 5 or 6 years, having kids, it's a chance for you to reflect on what's really important to you. You know this as a parent with a young daughter. You think about like what's important to you, what legacy do I want to live, what example do I want to set for the next generation. So that's kind of like the different seeds that have gone into this.
So what is important to you?
In life in general?
In life, yeah. What are some core values you try to live by?
So I think my kind of 2 core values, I would say, would be compassion and respect. I have a deep sense of empathy, and so I think compassion is something that helps me engage with other people, helps me get a sense of where they might be coming from. I'm very collaborative, and I have a big heart. So it kind of like lends to the community involvement and wanting to sort of make the world a better place. Very idealistic. And then respect for other people, I think, is really related to that. I think everyone deserves respect. I think that's like a fundamental kind of principle of mine, whether it's how I show up in my community involvement or in my plans to run for office, or it's, the decisions that I make at work. I've worked in public policy, and we've made some really, really impactful decisions about programs and services that happen on the ground. And I think having a sort of baseline that everyone deserves, respect and sort of that decent standard of living is a foundational value of mine.
Was there like a specific moment where you thought, someone needs to step up, and you thought maybe that person is me? Was there something that really stood out to you?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because you've been like, I've known you for a little bit now, at least 3 years? Just in general,
Yeah,
like no of you.
Yeah.
Because we lived close to each other for a bit. And you've always been involved. Like, for example, I know it's minor, but it as a parent is important to me. I believe you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you were the one who wanted to replace the wood chips in the playground at Town Park because, people obviously can leave things that are not there for kids, right? And you change that into you help push that to change that into something more durable for children. I believe you're a part of that?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
And so obviously, maybe
Good memory.
maybe if I was 20, I wouldn't have cared that
Right.
as much. But obviously, when you have children, things change. And so little things like that mean a lot to me.
Oh, thank you.
So what moments were you like, I need to do a little bit extra. I want to run to do this little bit extra. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the episode. I just want to give a little bit of a shout out to one of our sponsors for the podcast, Methylene Blue. You can find this at Paradigm Supplements. We like to use it here at the podcast just because it helps with gut health, immune system, ATP performance. Use code GETALPHA15 for a little bit of money off. Other than that, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, it's a good question. So,
Or has it been brewing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has been brewing for a long time, having worked at Queen's Park and worked in government and thought about what are the ways that I can sort of make the most impact in my time on this planet.
Yeah.
But in the last election campaign in Aurora, I won't get into specifics or names or anything, but a candidate came to my door, and I remember being really excited because I was like, I have a lot of ideas, right? Like, you know me, like I'm out advocating for the playground to get replaced so that it's safer, and I'm involved with this and that, and I had lots of ideas. So I'm like, perfect, this is the person I want to chat with, and I want to like share what's on my mind and have an engaging conversation. And they didn't take one moment to ask me my opinion or what was important to me or what frustrated me or what did I want to change. They just talked at me, and it was a really like icky moment for me, and I thought, like, that's not how I want this role to work, right? I want someone in there who wants to hear from residents and really wants to know what's important to them, right? And what makes them tick. So I think that sort of planted the seed or lit a fire under me to, step up. And then the other piece is, I think, again, like having young kids, you really think about, what example am I setting for them? And I think about all kids then. Like, if I want to see more, like, parents with young kids in politics, if I want to see more women in politics, if I want to see fresh perspectives at the table, then maybe I need to step up. Like, I can't just keep waiting for someone else to do it. So yeah, I think kind of combo those couple things.
Interesting. So when running for council, it's obviously like a big decision. What was the internal conversation that you had like before you committed? Because I'm sure you had a conversation obviously with your husband.
Oh yeah, just a few.
Just a couple.
A lot of them.
So what was that moment or conversation where you had either with yourself or with him where you're like, we're doing it right now. I don't know. What's the process of running for town council? I don't even know the process of it.
Okay. So to be clear, I'm not running yet. The campaign doesn't officially start until May.
Okay.
But I've announced my intention to run in Ward 1, which is the ward that I live in. So, yeah, as I said, this is something that has been in the back of my mind for a long time. And I think, yeah, with that comes a lot of self-reflection around whether, you'd be the best fit for the job. It's so important that, I'd want to make sure I'd be a really good fit. And that piece I was always like, and I don't want to be boastful, but I always thought that I could probably do a good job because I care. Like if it comes down to respect and compassion and having kind of a good grounding in public service and being committed to the community, I think that's what we want in our leaders, right? So that piece, I thought, I think I could do this and I think I could do a good job. And I think I care and I could amplify residents' voices and their concerns. But it's also, we were talking about this earlier before the show, politics can be very polarizing and you're opening yourself up then to a lot of criticism and, you know, potentially like a combative arena. And that is new for me. So I think there was a lot of consideration that went into that, as well as the impact on my family, you know, the time spent away from my kids, you know, juggling dual roles of like mom and, you know, whatever work I'm doing or volunteerism and this. My husband, God bless him, Andrew, is so supportive and he's always, I think, seen the potential in me and he's seen over the years how much it's meant to me to be involved in the community. And he's just always known that that has been such a core element of who I am and that that's when I shine. So I think he just kind of sees that and is like, yeah, go for it. And so having him as my, like, you know, cheerleader has been huge, and lots of conversations with very close friends. And yeah, just kind of coming back again to those aha moments. I think the biggest thing is just wanting to see fresh perspectives at the table. And you know what? It's motivating to know that I'm not doing this for myself. If I was doing, like, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm not doing it for the fame or the glory, right? Yes. You can look at the compensation of a counselor and no, that's not why I'm doing it. But if I think that I can do something really good for the community and I can make sure that more voices are sort of represented around that table, then I think it's worth it. Even if it's really hard, even if I'm getting criticized, you know, even if it's more time away from my kids, it's, you know, I'm doing it for that greater good.
And how did you deal with self-doubt of going into, like, wanting to go into it, if you did feel any of that? So is there any specific thing you told yourself or went to anybody for guidance?
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, I think it's like human nature to have self-doubt. So absolutely. I mean, I think having people who you trust and value in those close relationships has really been helpful for me, you know, having those conversations with my husband, with, you know, my closest friends, the people that sometimes can kind of, you know, straighten you out when you're maybe worrying too much or catastrophizing. I've also done therapy. And so I think I have some really good skills that I learned through that. And, you know, that helps me when, you know, maybe a worry or a fear is a bit disproportionate with the reality. It's like, okay, let's check this thought. So I'm pretty good about doing that when I notice, like, okay, I'm having a big feeling here. Having like healthy ways to process it is pretty big. Yeah, I think those are probably the main things. You know, and self-care. Self-care is big as well.
It is important.
Huge.
What are the biggest things that you took away from therapy? I've been to therapy. I found when I was younger, I was raised by a single mom. So I had a lot of issues in the sense of pushing myself too much, and I never have anxiety, but I'm very much like I was emotionally and physically abused as a child. So when I can deal with hard situations, but that also means I shut off to deal with it. And that's not really the most like healthy way to deal with things. So I'm still working because, you know, it's a lifelong process.
We all are.
But I'm better. I would say I'm more emotionally intelligent. I try to be, you know, self-regulate and try to understand myself more. What are a couple of things that you really have gathered for yourself when it came to therapy?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm sorry for the struggles and the hardship that you endured. Yeah, no child should ever experience that. So my heart is with you. Thank you for sharing with me.
Of course.
And I think we all have so much to learn from therapy, right? So I fully support that, and it's been very helpful for me. I think the big things, it's a good question. I think I'm someone who wants certainty, and the reality is it doesn't exist, right? Life is always changing. There's always nuance. You know, we can't control all the things that we want to control, and so letting letting go of that a little bit and reminding myself of that when I start to look for certainty more, when I'm starting to like, you know, grasp for that and catching that in myself, I think has probably been one of the biggest learnings. Yeah, and then having sort of self-compassion to navigate that when it's really uncomfortable, that, you know, I have to be a little bit more flexible than I'd like to be, or that there is uncertainty about what's going to happen, and just being able to like ride that and allow that to happen has been very big for me.
Good. I respect how you talk about being in therapy so much, because even though I think everybody would benefit a little bit from it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a little bit of a stigma towards it that
100%.
that there's something wrong with you or something. But it's about finding the tools to better yourself, right? And I'm sure you know this, but they don't give you an answer, but they give you the avenue to find the answer for yourself, right? So I appreciate you being honest about that, because a lot of people don't really want to admit to that, right?
Yeah. No, I've definitely tried to be quite open about, like, I've had pretty significant depression and anxiety, and I think that's part of what makes me the person I am today. It helps put things in perspective. You know, part of recovering from that was being really clear about what was important to me and what my goals are, and making sure that then I'm taking care of myself in the ways that allow me to thrive, right? Like, if it's pursuing goals, if it's serving others, like, these things are all really, really meaningful. And so for me, I think those are sort of formative experiences that, and, you know, if I can share about struggle that I've gone through to show the people that, like, A, I'm not perfect and I don't have everything together, because no one does. And B, like, you know, depression, anxiety, mental health issues, these happen and they're part of life, and, you know, help us out there, and you can, you know, get through them and find ways to cope and thrive after too, right?
When you feel anxiety or a little bit of too much, how do you self-regulate?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I have so many tools now after all these years.
That's good, though.
It is good. It is good. I mean, I practice mindfulness. So I think, like, breathing, having stillness, self-reflection, those are all big. I talk to family and friends. I take my dog for a walk every day, and those can be a good time. You've probably seen me out in the neighborhood. Those can be good times to, like, work through things in your mind and come back to making sure that you kind of have balanced thoughts, that you're catching any tendencies that you have to go sort of like off the rails one way or another. Yeah, and then I think like self-care is huge. It's self-care for everyone, whether you want to be a leader and you need to be able to keep your emotions in check and take care of yourself so you can thrive, or like you're just a parent. Like, that's such a pivotal role, to take care of your kids, right?
Yeah.
And so we all need to have those things that we come back to like process and self-regulate. I know, like, having sleep, like good sleep, diet, these are like exercise, these are foundational, the right amount of sunlight, right?
Yeah.
And so over the years, I've become very keen on making sure that I do those things so that I can show up the best way for myself and for the people that I love, and then my community, right?
You do seem very, what's the best word to put it? You do seem very like self-reflective. Like, you seem like you understand yourself, which is important to better yourself, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
I try.
What does service mean to you personally?
That's a good question. Service. So I think service is about sort of anticipating the needs of others and showing up with a high level of sort of delivery on what it is that they need. So, I mean, whether it's like hospitality, I've seen you've had Megan from My Indie on before, and she's amazing. She's a dear friend. And, you know, whether it's how she shows up for her clients, or if it's like serving in the capacity as an elected official, a politician, I think that there's a degree of sort of listening, like empathy and attunement to understand what other people need and where are they showing up right now, and then being able to respond to that. You know, we can't always make everything perfect for everyone. That's not what I'm like here to commit to, but we can make sure people feel that they've been heard, that they've had a chance to have their voice heard, and that you will take that forward and you'll do with it what you can, right? And so I think that to me is sort of what services around those kind of key values and showing up that delivery.
So why now? Why run now?
It's a good question. Yeah, you're not the first person who's asked me and looked at me like I'm losing my marbles for doing it. I think...
Because that has to have been something.
Yeah, I think Aurora is... I mean, if you have seen my social media, I have an Instagram account, Hello Lauren Hanna is my handle, and every week I curate a collection of what's going on in the town. I'm the biggest fan of Aurora and what's going on here. Like, I think we have an amazing, amazing town. The people in it are so wonderful. We have like the best businesses and, activities and amenities and so many free programs. So there's so much to celebrate. And I also think that we're ready for some fresh perspectives at the council table. I think having new voices is a good thing. And I think having, more sort of younger voices at the table that have, so maybe young families are like a bit more in touch with what that experience is like. I think that would be really, really helpful for the town. And politics in the town is pretty polarized right now.
Agreed.
Okay. There's been, some people don't follow politics at all, and I don't fault them for that. But for people who do follow it, I hear from people a lot that they're frustrated with things being kind of like one side or the other, that there's, maybe like animosity, and that it's just very sort of negative and controversial right now. And so I think I also see that I have something to add there. I think I can sort of check that box on a fresh perspective, someone who is really committed to hearing from a diverse group of sort of stakeholders and residents and bringing those perspectives forward. And I'm also very collaborative. I go back to my values, like compassion and respect are key for me. So I'm committed also to being someone who's at the table, trying to collaborate, trying to find compromises. That's my style. And so I think there's also a really big gap that needs to be filled at the table with that skill set and that personality.
What's the biggest concerns, or what are some concerns you are hearing right now from the residents?
So it's a great question, and I've had lots of these conversations in recent years and recent weeks. I've also committed that I'm going to run listening circles or kind of like coffee chats where I'll bring people together because I want to hear from them. So I think this will continue to evolve, and the more people that you ask, the more opinions you'll get too. But I think at the end of the day, people want to feel like they feel engaged and they have good information. I think we can do a better job in our town on the communication side, getting information out about, what programs and services exist, what information or what evidence went into making decisions. And I think that builds trust when people have really good flow of information. And I think to some extent, my social media has been helping to fill maybe a gap that existed because people didn't feel like they were always hearing about all these things. But then I think we can kind of bring that up to another level with the government.
Sorry to interrupt you,
go
but
ahead.
I do agree, actually, now thinking about your social media and stuff like that, I do feel like you actually bridge that gap between a person because if I didn't know too much about what's going on in the town, and I didn't know where to look, but you're a very welcoming person and I follow your page, now I know, and now that bridge that gap. I'm like, what, I do actually care about it. So I do feel like you do that.
Thank you.
Personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of work. I don't know how you do it. Like you do the newsletter, right?
I just started a newsletter. Yeah, my first issue just came out. So my plan is to do that monthly for now. And then once the election campaign changes or kicks off in May, then we'll see whether it's kind of shifts gears a little bit. But yeah, I think there's just a real need around that information sharing piece. And then to go back to your question, I think that I always hear from people about traffic safety and growth concerns, not just related to traffic, but how do we manage growth in a way that preserves the small town charm of Aurora? So whether it's revitalizing downtown, but keeping that small town feel. If it is, as density increases, how do we make sure that our roads are still safe? They're not too congested. You're not too backed up at the train tracks,
Yes.
or you feel that your kids are safe when they're out walking. I think with car volumes and that kind of thing, that's always big. The information sharing and the collegiality are, I think, two big ones that I, have kind of touched on. I think those are just some examples, but those are kind of some of the big ones that I've heard about. I think, and I should say, I think that affordability and safety will always be top of mind for voters. So I'm trying to think of sort of more maybe specific examples in the town, but those are kind of key pieces. If you are struggling to put food on the table, that's going to be your top priority, right?
Of course.
And so I think those kind of key issues are going to be things that transcend levels of government. So those are just always priorities, whether it's at your local level or if it's thinking about the national level and what's our government doing there. Affordability and safety are just kind of pivotal things that we all need, right?
Yeah, fair. If I give you a magic wand and you can fix one thing immediately, right away, no if, no ands, no buts, what would you fix right now?
Oh my gosh, that's hard. So I think if I could change one thing right now, I think I would change that tone of municipal politics in Aurora right now. I think I would just try to make that debate, and I think this goes outside of Aurora too, more about finding common ground, hearing the other side, finding compromise, because I think we're seeing that issue in all levels of government, and we see it across the border too. And it's alarming. It makes people either want to check out of politics, not see, the good in it and the value in it. They're like, nope, I don't want to participate in that. Or if you are participating in it, I think it's hard on people's mental health, right?
Of course.
That's not good for anyone. That's toxic, right? So I think if I could change one thing, not selfishly because I'm planning to run, but if I could change one thing, I think that's where that could really shape then the solutions that we come up with our town, right? Because I don't think that anyone is well served when the debate has to be either or, it has to be extremes, that we can't find compromise, that we can't take a pause and work together. That's ultimately what's going to serve our residents best. And if I run and I get elected, then that's my job, right? Is to find the best solutions that I can for my residents. And so, I think that's the way. Set that tone and be able to work together, and that's I think where you're going to come up with the best possible answers as well.
What makes you uniquely qualified to represent people at the council level? From hearing you, I think you're very good and you have the right intentions to delegate and create compromise. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Thank you.
But what do you think?
You can get my bio.
Yeah, there you go. Right down.
You want my business card? So I think I have a unique skill set. Some people will know me just from recent years of being involved in the community, being a mom, this pseudo influencer, posting all this stuff on social media. But my background, as I alluded to, I worked at the Auditor General's office for almost 5 years. And so that is all about holding the government accountable and making sure that public money, taxpayer dollars, are well spent. And so I worked on auditing different parts of the provincial government. I worked on 10 plus ministries. So I had a really good handle on what was happening across the province and all these different programs and services, developing risk assessments to figure out how do you pick kind of risky areas. And that, really also developed a good business and financial acumen skill set around business and finance. So I have that background, and then, I have all the kind of community involvement stuff, hearing from parents, using local programs, trying to sort of spotlight and highlight local businesses and what they're providing to our community. And then, I did work in the public service too. So I think I understand how government works. I, understand the importance of kind of collaboration across all sides, and how policies and, bylaws and budgets get made. What goes into that? What's that process like? It's easy sometimes from outside government to be like, why is this not happening? And why did it not happen yesterday? But I also understand what that process looks like. So I think that's kind of a good blend of different skill sets combined with my values, and there you have it.
I read a great quote the other day, and it was
I love quotes.
same. The difference between a mob and a community is a great leader. What do you think a good leader, a great leader, what kind of skills should they have?
So I think I've alluded to some of it. I think it's really important to be someone who listens, who, makes people feel heard and is not looking either for an echo chamber just to reinforce what they already think, or to be someone who just preaches. So I think being someone who listens and who is interested in that sort of consultation and engagement is really important. And then I think developing trust is huge. Like being able to develop strong personal relationships and, to be good to your word, I think is like pivotal as well. So I think those would be kind of two key pieces. And then maybe a third would be courage. I think being willing to step into uncomfortable situations, to face your fears, to do things you haven't done before, to have conversations. Those are kind of key. Yeah.
So that brings me up to another question is, obviously you're going to have different conversations with other people. How do you deal with confrontation? Personally, have you learned to deal with it pretty well? Have you always dealt with it pretty well?
I think it's...
Because it will happen, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something that has evolved over the course of my life, developing stronger communication skills, more assertiveness, willingness to have uncomfortable conversations, but knowing that I will be proud of myself and in line with my values if I'm proactive and forward with these things versus kind of like taking a back seat and just waiting to see how things shape out. So yeah, I think, again, foundational values. If you feel compassionate towards other people, if you fundamentally treat them with respect, you can have these conversations, but not in a way that has to demean or belittle someone or their position, right? So I think for me, that's guiding, right? Like staying true to my values helps me guide my decision making, and then showing up and treating other people with, respect is kind of like a two-part combo, right?
Yeah, that's fair. What does a stronger, healthier community look like to you 5 years from now?
Good question.
Stronger, healthier community.
Yeah, that's exciting to think about.
Yeah, of course.
So I think a place where I'll maybe like start broad and then can give some more specific examples too. I think a place where residents have a more sense of engagement, where they feel like they're either more involved in local government and they've had their voices heard, or they have a better sense of information sharing, what's happening. They were consulted on XYZ, or they heard it before it happened. And just having a bit more of that engagement would be really, really healthy for our town. And then I think that also there are some exciting things that are happening. I know that, downtown revitalization at sort of Yonge and Wellington has been something that people have wanted for a very long time. And while we may never be a Newmarket Main Street, I think that in 5 years, if we could start to see some more kind of progress in that direction, not necessarily in the direction of Newmarket, but in the direction of what does a revitalized Aurora look like, with maybe more foot traffic, a bit more of those amenities that people would be excited to be out and about visiting. Yeah. I think that would be really, really cool. Yeah, I think those are kind of like two big ones around sort of like engagement and just that information sharing piece, building that accountability and trust. And then, there's one sort of specific example.
It's funny you bring it up. We always talk about it every time, but the thing we wish we could see in Aurora a little bit more is, when you want to go for like a nice dinner, you think of Main Street sometimes, right? And I don't know what the answer is, but it would be nice to have that in Aurora, some kind of situation.
It's the options too.
Is it the options?
Options of
more options.
They have breweries. They have whiskey bar now. They have coffee shops. They have little shops. They have even like Replenish.
You know what?
It was such a great story.
I know, we lost it.
Yeah, but it's also so much easier there. You can park behind.
You show up in one spot.
Yeah,
and it's all
and you
there.
can just walk the whole strip, and you can do like a cute afternoon, or like it's got stuff for kids, for adults. Like has the splash pad and the skating in the winter. Like there's so many options in such a little area.
Right.
Now, I mean, obviously, I'm putting. You know what it is too is I feel like, and maybe this is just like comparing apples and oranges, but I feel like in Aurora, and unless I'm not looking at the right places, a lot of the food places are like franchises, and I feel like when I go to Main Street, it's like. Maybe because I'm a business owner,
Locally owned.
I feel like, yes, of course I want to support this person, right? And that's in anything that's, even in Aurora, if it's like a coffee shop or whatever, if I know it's them, but, you know, I'd rather have, this is also a very high expectation, but let's say like a Kelsey's. I'd rather like, I don't know, something that was either Aurora.
Kelsey's going to come bash you.
Yeah, 100%. We'll heavily redact it. It's okay. But like
We do all our parties there.
Yeah, it's true. But like I'd rather like I think that it would be interesting if we could have some local restaurants or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I know that's a big ask. I know that's a big change.
Yeah. So I am a huge fan of local, and have been trying to come up with different ways to profile local businesses, local restaurants, local cafes, because I think we actually do have some really amazing gems in Aurora. But I will agree, they're spread out.
I think
Some
maybe
of
that's
them
what
are
it is.
tucked in different plazas. You don't even know they're there necessarily. You need like word of mouth, or you need a reason to be in that plaza. So I think that's where the downtown revitalization piece comes into play. And we have seeds of it. We have, the library. I'm biased, but I love the library. I'm very involved.
Yeah.
And then we have like Town Square that's right there. I was there yesterday with my kids. We were at a free story time with the cast of Frozen that was put on by one of our local theater companies. So like how cool that you can go. You can go to My Indie Cafe, you can get a coffee, you can walk over to that. We went over, we got some books from the library. So that is creating that mindset of like park your car or walk over and hang out for a while. But I agree, it'd be nice. We want more restaurants, right? We want more shops, more of those places that encourage you to go from like point A to point B and keep wandering around and supporting local.
Yes. I feel like there's just so much potential for that. I can sense it. Like there's potential for
and there's
that.
appetite, like
huge appetite for
Do
it.
you think
at least
everybody goes there? Like even like people who I know, and
even
who
as
live
it is,
here.
yeah.
And I mean, I think people from Aurora always went to Newmarket. Like I grew up in Newmarket, not Aurora, and it was like
Okay, we still love you.
everybody. It's okay, I live here now, but I'm like, no, I'm from Newmarket. But like everybody from Aurora always came to Newmarket, and I still feel like people do that when they want to go.
Still doing that a lot.
And to enjoy those things.
So
it'd be nice to have that.
it's
Kind of stuff.
refreshing.
It's
Yeah.
great that you're pushing.
Yes,
Correct.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's refreshing that you want to push that because I think that's phenomenal. I went to elementary here in Aurora. I went to Letter Christ.
Oh, nice.
And so I remember.
So did Our Lady of Grace.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there you go.
So I remember when it was a big deal when the Cineplex got built here.
Yeah.
So and then to see like how much
The changes?
it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Totally.
And it just I just feel like there's almost like too many different pockets of things, right? And I guess that's a structural thing. Like you can't really just ask for everything to be put here.
Right. Yeah. There's so much on the other side of town near Bayview, near Leslie,
Exactly.
and there's so many like big or newer units that can allow different kinds of businesses. I feel like I'm over there all the time now with my kids.
Yeah.
I was just over trying a new like indoor tennis facility, and there's so much over there. But I think with the train tracks to some extent, I think that creates a bit of a divide, whether it's like physical or mental. That we have these different pockets. But I think if you create a great downtown. And I'm not committing to this in 5 years because it's good. These projects take a long time, right?
Of course.
I grew up going, one of my childhood best friends lived just off of Newmarket Main Street, and it wasn't what it is now, right? Now, that was, 20, 30 years ago. But still, like, these things take time. But I think if you create a really good downtown, ultimately people are going to come. Right, Aurora is not a big town.
It took a long time to get that Main Street in
Right,
Newmarket,
yes.
'cause it was also not like that when I
Like
there were like ice cream shops and they had all of those little
Pockets.
things. Yes,
but it was not as vibrant and
definitely
the
not the vibe necessarily.
the Riverwalk Commons with the splash pad.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
Like,
but it took years to get that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So we also have to be comfortable with or willing to accept gradual change, right? Which is tough. And I think, the reality is with politics, often people are interested in something that's like short term.
Yes.
Both the decisions that you make, you're like, I need action now so that I can run on something in the next election, right?
Yeah.
Like see the future goal
Right.
and work that far ahead.
Right, yeah.
How do you plan to actually stay connected with residents when you're hopefully in office, right?
yeah.
Because you're super well connected now, but obviously, God willing, going forward, when you have the platform to do even more, you have so much more stress, more things. Have you thought about are you gonna figure out a game plan to stay connected?
Yeah. So I like the idea of having office hours, regular office hours, where it's sort of like, this is my day, here's my time window, and book yourself in. So I don't know what the kind of technology solution is that's going to facilitate that, but I really like that idea so that people always feel they can book a meeting with me, book a coffee with me, and tell me what's on their mind, what are their priorities. And then I think, I'm keen always to be out in the community, attending events, attending meetings. I already do a fair bit of that, but for sure, hopefully those invites will keep coming.
Yeah, of
and
course.
that's my way also to kind of keep a pulse on what's happening. I've started, my oldest daughter is 4.5. I've started trying to bring her to more things because I'm like, if this is going to be a really big part of my life, you need to be able to come with me.
Yeah.
Right?
This is true.
I want you to see me in action, right? Meeting new people, engaging, talking to a microphone. That's good for her to see, right? But yeah, just trying to find ways to weave these different elements of my life together. So I think those are a couple big ones. And then, I'm getting more and more versed at social media, whether it's, posts about what I've been up to in the community, finding ways to communicate what's coming up at council or what's happened at council, and maybe finding some savvier ways to do that on social media. I don't really see that happening right now. So that might be kind of an avenue. And then the newsletter is a new piece. So I think there's a lot of possibilities, and I don't think anyone has been doing, I guess the mayor does a fair bit of it on social media, but I think there's always ways to kind of build on that and evolve.
I would agree. I mean, you probably are the most connected with the people in the sense of you can tell trying to make sure they're heard and also they see what's going on. I would definitely agree with that.
Well,
because I mean, I follow all that stuff, and obviously we're not going to name people, but I see things and yes, there's a post or there's a story, but I find with you, there's a lot of speed and volume when it comes to the information that's coming out, which I think is important, right? Because if your reputation is that you will always announce what's going on, what's happening, if there's information, and you're consistent with that, then I can rely on you. And if I rely on you, then I will trust in your decisions.
Right, there's a trust element then too.
Right.
Yeah.
So I find.
Yeah, I think the idea, each week I do this weekly activity roundup of kind of what's happening in Aurora, and I've tried to be really consistent with it. So for over a year, it's been happening, and it's once a week, what's going on, and people know to expect that. And then I think there are ways to build on that. I've been trying out different kind of templates and ways to just regularly highlight, whether it's a local business or it's, an activity that I've been to. I think there's a desire for that information. The reason I'm doing it is because the response since I started has been so positive, and it seems to be filling this need. So I think there are really so many ways to kind of get creative and build on what people are doing. Because I think there's so much that, existing councillors and the town are doing that is fantastic. So just building on that and being open to innovating.
How would you balance listening to people with making tough decisions at the same time?
It's a good question.
Because I feel like you really, the big thing I'm hearing from you is you can't obviously, which is fair, I think is totally fair. You can't promise that what they're going to be telling you will be done, but you can promise them that you will listen to them and see them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably going to be the hardest part of the job is that you can't do everything for everyone, right? As much as you might want to. The reality of finite budgets, the reality that sometimes granting A for one group is going to mean that someone else is not so happy with it. I think the listening piece is essential, making sure that people feel heard, listened to, that you've heard their concerns, that you're willing to, bring them forward or have conversations about how you compromise. And then I think the tough decisions piece, I think ultimately will come down to being really in touch with my values. Why am I there in the first place? Like, what are those key goals that I have that I'm being quite honest with from the get-go, like around accountability, around engagement. I want to support people, like families across the lifespan, and I'm already doing that on social media. So I think people have a sense of who I am and what they're going to get and what kind of leader I would be. But like, I can just say, if it comes down to like compassion and respect, that's how I will vote. That's how I will make a decision. And so, yeah, some of them are probably going to be hard and it's going to be tough and uncomfortable or require a lot of reflection. But I think like ultimately, hopefully people know that that's what's going to guide my decision. And so hopefully that builds a bit of trust too, just knowing like this is the kind of person that we're going to get. And so we might not always love what she does, or we don't have a crystal ball. So we can't know exactly what the issue will be 3 years from now and how she will vote. But we know that these are her core values. And so she's always going to try to aim for a solution that is about like being compassionate and respectful.
And compromise.
Yeah.
Compromise for sure.
Totally.
What's one issue you think isn't getting enough attention right now?
That's a really good question.
Anything comes to mind that you think like we really need to focus on this?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a couple things. One, I would love to see more kind of attention and local conversations about what happens outside of our town too. Because I think that like, yes, we can have really, really important critical conversations about our local roads and our local parks. And I've been part of those conversations, so I'm not dissing them in any way. But I also think that the reality is none of us are, we're born into this world with like this sense of these boundaries around our town, right? Like we see the news, we realize that all these other levels of government are impacting us. And I don't think that there's a lot of like local dialogue and conversations about what's happening either globally or what's happening at the provincial level or nationally, and what's our role in that? Like, what's the small piece that we can do? Whether it's like reducing the amount of waste that we create, if it's, thinking about what Aurora's position on XYZ and how can we lobby other levels of government with that. I think that's one thing that I'm kind of interested in, and I don't see a ton of that right now.
What mindset do you rely on when things get super challenging?
What mindset? That's a good question. I think I like quotes.
That's okay. I love a good quote. Give me one.
No, well, I not necessarily like to pull on a particular one, but I think depending on what the situation is, sometimes I'll go back to like, what are those kind of like formative statements? What is it that the world needs? What is it that connects me back to my values and like, why am I here and what am I doing? So I think like that would be kind of something that helps me reground back to that right mindset, right? There's also this great quote that I heard previously, and it was something that President Obama said, and it was talking about a particular issue, and it was like, if in 20 years my kids asked me, did you know about this? And essentially like, why didn't you do anything about it? How would you feel, or something along those lines? And it's like, that sticks with me of like, what is the world that I want to create for the next generation? And how can I either inspire that next generation of leaders and try to get more young people engaged in government and politics? Or just like, what are the practical things that I think we need to put in place so that they're in like a safer, more engaged, vibrant community? So that also is very like grounding and motivating for me.
What role do small businesses and community organizations play in building a stronger town, do you think?
Well, if you have looked at my social media, you know I'm a big fan of like community organizations and local businesses. I think they're essential. They're like the lifeblood of our community, right? It's like, where do you go each day? Where do you do your shopping? Where do you go to the gym? Who are the, like local service providers that are helping you with whatever your problem might be? So I just think that these are like essential parts of our community. And the reality is they also are community members who you're going to see out and about, who have kids that are going to the local schools, who are aging and hopefully like aging close to home. So I just think that these are both like vital services that we need to like either, grow our economy, tax contributions to pay for the amenities and services that we want, and also just really important members of our community who are willing to go out on a limb, have a creative idea, take a risk in opening a business. And so I think we want to support them as much as we can.
What's something people would be surprised to learn about you?
Surprised. So, I mean, I already told you about my background at the Auditor General's office in finance. So I think some people might not expect that.
Are you funny?
I talked to you about, having depression and anxiety. I don't think people would expect that often because generally I'm pretty like friendly and engaging and out there. And you might not expect that, I've had very low moments or a lot of like self-doubt and insecurity. Those are probably the main things. I really like chocolate.
Really like chocolate?
So I think sometimes too, it's easy to think like, oh, this person's perfect and she has no flaws. But like, I have self-doubt like everyone else. I have like, weaknesses like everyone else. I have my off days with my kids. Like that's the reality and part of being human, right?
Well, you brought it up twice, so I'm going to put my foot on the pedal a little bit more.
Chocolate or what?
Chocolate, yeah. Snickers or Mars. But you talked about, anxiety and depression. If you feel comfortable about it, what was what was the cause of that? Like, how did you realize that you're suffering from that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, how much time do you have?
As much time as you want.
I mean, I think I always probably had some seeds of like maybe lower mood, very like self-reflective, high standards, like type A perfectionist. And then when I was in grade 12, my grandmother passed away, who I was very, very close with, had always been really close with her. And prior to her passing, my mom was away taking care of her for a long period. And so that was like a huge transition as well, because my mom had always stayed at home. So she was always this huge part of my life. And then, I had like, there were other kind of family things that happened. And then go off to university. My grandfather passed away that year, go off to university. And then that's a huge transition, right? Like you're away from your social network, your family, your routines, like trying to figure out what you're going to study, all that sort of stuff. So I ended up, I developed an eating disorder. And I was like I was trying to control everything that I could, controlling my intake of food, trying to control my weight. And I ended up very depressed, very anxious. And that sort of kicked off a journey of like, I knew that I needed help. I wanted to like be, a contributing member of society and have fulfilling relationships and all that sort of stuff. But I really had to like take a step back and focus on my health. So I got help and I dealt with the eating disorder, but depression and anxiety, like, were really stuck with me for many years. And I think I will always have like a tendency to worry more than some people. And I think I will always have a tendency to like have big feelings and maybe like have periods where I maybe, the odd day where I'm like, I feel a little bit lower again today. But like a lot of years of, doing all the things that you can do to try and improve your mental health have fortunately kind of, I hope, landed me on the other side. And so, I mean, I still though, like self-care is so important. Having those supportive and healthy relationships, exercising, sleep, like I'm very cognizant, and I think I always will be for the rest of my life, of like, what are those building blocks for like health and wellness? And I think part of that is purpose too, right? Like having a sense of purpose and following that. I think for many years I wanted to be more involved in the community. I wanted to, step up and be a leader or, take risks to follow things that felt meaningful, but I was afraid. And so I think for me, like helping to silence those like inner critics or self-doubts was also really helpful in terms of like stepping up as a leader and kind of stepping into my potential.
Mm-hmm. What keeps you optimistic about the future of the community?
Ooh, maybe the fact that I'm an idealist.
Yeah.
That might
That's
be part
good,
of
though.
it. That might be part of it. I mean, I've already said it, but like I think our town is fantastic. We're a diverse community. We're growing, and we have been. We have amazing local like amenities that are free programs for families and for kids, and I think those are really well utilized, but we can grow them. We have, I moved up here with my husband who had grown up in Toronto. He's like, these parks are beautiful. Like, we have
It's so funny.
gorgeous playgrounds and we have green spaces. And so like, we just have so much to celebrate. There's the more that I do what I'm doing on social media and get, connected to more local businesses and services, I'm just amazed at, the diversity of what exists in the town. We just have so much to celebrate. And I think the more that we can kind of work together and collaborate, the better off we'll be. One example, I'm part of a couple different groups right now that are sort of planning events. And one was around women's health. It's called Awaken Aurora. And I started it with 2 other women, and we've had one sold out event. We have another one coming up, and there just seems so much like demand. And I think it's really cool that we're in a town where if you are willing to take a risk and create something, people are generally pretty supportive. Like, we have amazing neighbors and communities. People will come out and like rally behind you and get involved. And like, how lucky are we that we live in a place that's like that?
Oh, 100%.
I'm sure you've experienced that with the business, right? With the podcast, with the gym, like,
it's true. It's true.
Developing those relationships is just like what it's all about.
It's a blessing. It really is.
Totally.
If someone is still undecided about you, they're listening, but like, I don't know. What would you want them to know?
So, I think the good thing is they still have a number of months to kind of follow along with my journey. So, like, having these listening circles or whatever configuration of that will be, a one-on-one chat or a group kind of opportunity for people to talk about what's important to them. I think that shows that I'm interested and I want to hear what's important to people, and my job will be to ultimately represent the best interests of the people who elected me. So just knowing that I want to put in that effort, I want to get to know people and what's important to them. I think that's really key. And then I think the kind of the values that I've highlighted, what my priorities and values are, I think that's really good for people to hear too, to know this is what I stand for. In the coming, months, and once the campaign actually begins, I for sure will be releasing more detail around like what's my platform, where do I stand on all these different issues. But I think for right now, what's most important is just for people to know, like, this is my plan. These are my core values. This is what I stand for. And you can kind of follow along with my journey. Like, here I am I'm out and about in the community, or I'm online if you want to follow my newsletter. And I'm keen to talk to people. Like, I want to hear, even if people have different opinions or different views, I want to hear from them. If they have feedback about what I'm doing online, I'm always looking to improve. So I think knowing too that I'm very kind of, open and flexible in that sense is good for people to know too.
That's good. What kind of legacy do you hope to leave if you're elected? All right, guys, we'll get back to the podcast, but I just want to give a little bit of a shout out to our sponsors, Northern Hydration. So it's a Canadian company. They sell electrolytes. They have lemon, they have lime, they have orange. My favorite is the orange. It's one of the best flavors in my opinion. But use our discount code GETALPHA10. Other than that, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So legacy to me is bigger than, we put in traffic safety measures on this one particular street or whatever it might be. I think, moving the dial forward on the kind of divisive nature of politics in Aurora right now would be really fantastic if I could leave politics with a culture that is a little bit more collaborative and a little bit like sort of healthier in that sense. I think that would be a huge improvement for the town.
Healthier conversations,
more willingness to have dialogue, less need for everything to be like one side or the other, but that you can, agree with some people on this and then agree with another person on a different issue, and that disagreement is okay. Or willing to be able to just like sit down and have those difficult conversations, but have them in a respectful way. That it doesn't have to get heated. It doesn't have to blow up. It doesn't have to be like, something that is, negative and polarized, but that can be respectful. So I think that would be really huge. I think if we can move the dial forward around revitalizing downtown, I think that would be massive. That's not, again, 5 years is not enough time to have, there are plans.
People have to manage their expectations, right?
Yes, yeah, but there are plans in the work. There's just a community planning permit system that was just approved for downtown that, has renderings of, what's it going to look like down the road when, if there are more condos and we have wider pedestrian areas and we have step backs. And so I think like over time, we'll start to see more of that. And I think that would be a really big change for the town as well. And then, I think there's like a cultural change. If we could help residents have like a more kind of pride around our identity as a town, I think that would be really fantastic too. A sense of pride in our town and a pride in what our town has to offer families. Like I think there's so much, and we can grow on and build on that. But for people to feel like they're in a place where they belong and that they feel supported across their lifespan, I think that would maybe be like the most valuable piece, for people to really feel like they're in a community that's looking out for them and that's supporting them throughout their life, whether they're like the youngest tots that their parents are taking them to programs and that they have a community and they have access to free services, or all the way up to seniors who I think, we have a lot, but maybe there's not enough information getting out about all the different options and, building spaces and places with them in mind and ensuring like that we're thinking about people across the lifespan. How do we support them? And I think that, really starts with having those people in our mind and hearing from them when we're making decisions.
How important is it for you, because you have 2 daughters, right? Mm-hmm. How important is it for your daughters to witness and see you pushing forward? And you ever think about that?
Oh yeah, 100%, all the time.
Yeah.
I think it's extremely important. I want them to be people who are willing to face their fears, who are willing to sort of step up and be the change that they want to see in the world. And not just them. I want all kids to feel that way, to feel that their voice is valuable and their perspectives. And I think that's what the world needs. And so if a little bit of me pursuing this path can be A, amplifying some of those voices that we haven't been hearing from, and B, hopefully setting an example. Like, I'm not going to be like overly idealistic, but if we can try to get some more residents engaged in politics, if I can reach out to some people that maybe have kind of tuned out of government a little bit, but tap into some new circles to either, increase voter turnout in my ward, I think would just be like, I've now stated it here, but I would love to do that. I think we're at a time when people are tuning out of government and like they're tuning out of democracy, and we need the opposite. Right? We want people to be tuning in. The world has such big issues. The town has issues, right? And the more that we have people involved in our governments, whether it's at the local level or, provincial, national, I think the better off we'll be. And so I want to plant those seeds for my kids and for like all youth, right? So I would love to be able to get into schools and talk to, kids and teens and say like, this is either a viable career option, or even if you don't need to run for office, but we want to hear from you, right? Like, pick an issue, and there's going to be a level of government that relates to it, and go take action, right? Like, put your hand up, organize with some of your peers. We want to hear from you. We need to hear from you. Yeah.
These are the last 2 questions for the show. Describe yourself in 1 word.
I think, that's hard. Is it funny if I say community?
I was going to say collaborative.
Yeah. There's a quote. I just noticed it on Yonge Street. I was walking down Yonge Street the other day, and it says, there's a big mural on Yonge, and it says, community builds community. And yeah, it's easy to be like, oh, she's so fluffy, whatever. But I think it's true. The more that we build like a strong community around ourselves, even if it's just with our friends, like building a family of our friends, or it's in the workplace, I think that there's a ripple effect, right? It grows, it grows, it grows. And so, yeah, for me, that's just what I'm all about.
And what does alpha mean to you?
So, I think of it and I'm like, that's the gym that I've gone to. And that's the gym that my husband goes to at the end of the street.
That's good. Trademark that.
Yeah. But I also, I hear alpha and I think leader. And yeah, to me, that's the place I want to be. I think there are different kinds of leaders. And so I think we have this sense that being a leader and being alpha needs to mean that you are dominating the conversation and you're like putting other people in their place, or that it's a certain type of like persona. And I don't think that needs to be the case. I think alpha can be all about being like strong, courageous, doing what might be difficult, and like stepping up to lead. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. I like that.
Thank you.
Let's bring this home. So where can they watch out for you? What should they subscribe to you? All the good stuff, the socials.
So you can find me on Instagram at Hello Lauren Hanna. And I'm also on Facebook. If you just search my name, Lauren Hanna, I'll come up, and that's where I share like daily activity ideas, updates on what's happening in the town. I do a little Did You Know series, so I'm always looking for new ideas. And then you can find me on my website, laurenhanna.ca. And you can also subscribe to my newsletter by going to that website, laurenhanna.ca, or through following me on my social channels. There's links to it as well. Yeah, and I'm happy to hear from people anytime. So if people want to reach out by email even, my email address is hello@laurenhanna.ca. So it's hopefully all easy to remember, but I'm always happy, like coffee, meeting, chat, let's collaborate, have me come out to an event, whatever it might be. That's, my whole year is going to be about that. Connecting and listening.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure to share. Please follow her socials. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, comment. We're on the road to 100, so keep watching. We love you guys. Ciao.
Thank you.